For this NDSO production, I'm going to play two French Noels. The first by Daquin, published in about 1757, and the second by Guilmant, written 128 years later in 1885, by which time the sound of French organs had changed almost beyond recognition. This is something which can be demonstrated with a Hauptwerk organ. So I'll be using sound samples from the Isnard organ in Saint-Maximin in Provence and the Cavaillé-Coll organ in Saint-Étienne in Caen. The Noels of the 18th century French organ school were based on religious songs, somewhat folk-like in nature, which were sung at the Christmas Eve midnight mass. By the 17th century, instrumental versions of the Noels appeared, and at the end of the century, the first keyboard variations on the Noel tunes were published, and many of these compositions survive. Louis-Claude Daquin was born in Paris to a family originating from Italy, where his great-grandfather took the name Daquino after converting from Judaism to Catholicism in the town of Aquino. Louis-Claude's parents were Claude Daquin, a painter, and Anne Tiercent, a grandniece of Rabelais. One of Louis-Claude's great-uncles was a professor of Hebrew at the Collège de France, and another was the principal physician of King Louis XIV. Daquin was a musical child prodigy. He performed for the court of Louis XIV at the age of 6, and for a while he was a pupil of Louis Marchand. At the age of 12, he became organist at the Sainte-Chapelle, and in the following year took a similar post at the church of Petit Saint-Antoine. Louis-Claude Daquin never lacked for work as an organist. In 1727, he was appointed organist at the church of St. Paul in Paris. 5 years later, he succeeded his music teacher Marchand as organist at the church of the Cordeliers, and in 1739 became organist to King Louis XV at the Chapelle Royale. In 1755 he was made titular organist at Notre Dame Cathedral. Now, I mentioned the organ of Saint-Maximin. This is a small town in Provence, probably about half the size of Southwell, and looming over all of it is the basilica, which was raised by Charles II of Anjou to the honour and glory of Mary Magdalene. According to some stories, she came to Provence along with the Virgin Mary, and she was buried in the place where the basilica stands today, at the place where Saint-Maximin, the first bishop of Aix-en-Provence, raised an oratory. After 1279, when the relics of Mary Magdalene were found, the present basilica was constructed between 1295 and 1296, together with the adjacent Dominican monastery. Her tomb became a pilgrimage place, and her skull, or part of it, at least according to the label, can still be seen there in the crypt today. The organ stands on a west gallery above the main entrance and was built by Jean-Esprit Isnard and his nephew Joseph in 1772 through to 1775. It's one of the very few French historical organs which survived the French Revolution. Legend has it that when the revolutionaries came to the basilica to destroy its furniture, including the organist of the time, Monsieur Foucard, played the revolutionary song the Marseillaise in front of the revolutionary authorities, and it saved the organ from demolition. So, being an organ in a small country town during the 19th century, there was never any money available, and it was saved from modernising tendencies of the time. As a result, this organ is one of the exceptional French large instruments whose material made by Isnard is preserved in its entirety. 2,960 pipes, except that the original wooden pipes of the bass octaves of the Bordens are only used for display now. They were substituted in 1991 for metal pipes. French classical organs have a very distinctive sound. Some very distinctive stops with a cornet, cromorns, trompettes, and more mutations that you'd never dream of here. The stops I'm using in this piece are the cornet on the récit, the cromorn on the positive, and the grand jeu, basically a diapason and reed chorus on the grand. I'm going to play the Noel number 10, which is a setting of Quand Dieu naquit à Noël, when God was born at Christmas. The tune is based on an earlier drinking song. The second piece, the Noel Ecossais by Guilmant, is a lot quieter, not to mention shorter. Alexandre Guilmant was born in March 1837 in Boulogne in northwest France. His father was organist of the Church of Saint Nicolas and gave his son his first organ lessons. Subsequently, Guilmant went to Brussels, where he was a pupil of Lemons. Returning to Boulogne, he became organist at the Church of Saint Joseph and the Maître de Chapelle of the Church of St. Nicholas. In 1868, the new church of Sainte Trinité was built in Paris with an organ by Cavalier-Coll. The first organist was Alexis Chauvet, but he died 2 years later when Guilmant was appointed as his successor. Due to the priest interfering in organ matters, Guilmant decided to leave Sainte Trinité in 1900, and thanks to Vierne, he became a regular deputy at Notre Dame. Guilmant, throughout his life, played many concerts, including 3 visits to the USA. He died in 1911 at his house in Meudon. His organ was inherited by Marcel Dupré. Guilmant carried on the tradition of the Noel into the 19th century, and I'll play, as I said, a much quieter piece than the Daquin, the Noel Ecossais, a Scottish carol. The stops used are the flute traversière on the récit, the solitional on the positive, and the bourdon on the grande, with the addition of the montre putting in an appearance in the middle section.